Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SourceForge podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Beau Hamilton, senior editor and multimedia producer here at SourceForge, the world's most visited software comparison site where B2B software buyers compare and find business and software solutions. Today, we're talking with Arturo Buzzalino, Chief Innovation Officer at Epicor, a leading provider of software solutions for businesses in the make, move, and sell economy. They've really been in the business globally for over 50 years and have, to say the least, they've endured a lot of technological change over those past 5 decades. Now, we had the pleasure of interviewing Vice President of Product Management at Epicor, Carrie Jordan, last July. If you haven't watched that yet, you should definitely give it a listen after this one. And if you have, you might recall that Carrie mentioned a recent announcement at the time, which was that they were working on their AI-powered ERP system known as Epicor Prism that uses AI agents to help address user requests. Now, Prism is initially available to be integrated with Epicor Kinetic, the company's cloud-based ERP system, specifically built for manufacturers. However, I could really see this being introduced across the company's full suite of products and services. So we're definitely going to talk more about that. But that's enough of my introduction. I want to bring in our guest today, Arturo, who played a key role in developing Prism. So with that said, let me introduce you, Arturo Buzzalino. Welcome to the podcast.
Yes, hi, Bo. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I always like, talking about technology, AI. It's like we were saying earlier, right? I just love to talk about this stuff. So always happy to do so. But yeah, a little bit about me. I'm Chief Innovation Officer at Epicor. So I lead our manufacturing side of the product management, and I also lead our design and R&D groups. So basically globally, right? So we'll incubate various things with a number of customers. We actually incubate, co-innovate with enterprise customers. And that's right. Prism was actually one of these, was the output of one of these co-innovations that we do with our customers. Because we're very, at Epicor, our strategy is very much start with problems and work backwards, not start with technology. So we're, and like you rightfully said, right? So 50 years in the supply chain, being an ERP provider, we obviously have had to adapt to changes. And really our strategy, and it always has been, is focus on problems, right? And making our users' daily lives easier.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. I want to start out with the ERP, kind of just start high level there and set the stage for what we're about to talk about, which is Prism. So what is ERP and just why is it important for manufacturers? Let's start there.
Yeah. So ERP, enterprise resource planning, is essentially, you could argue it's a almost like a prehistoric form of artificial intelligence, if you will. These systems came out in the 70s, right? Like people know of like SAP, Oracle, right? Which is like two really large providers in the ERP system. But basically ERP is, think of it as setting up your business into a number of different databases that talk to each other and upgrade and update data with each other. And they represent your operation. So everything from how much inventory do you have on hand? How much cash do you have on hand? What are your financials like? You're managing your financials, managing your orders that are coming in. So particularly for a manufacturer, historically, especially if the smaller ones, right, they might be doing things manually or in a very archaic way through spreadsheets and different things and different processes. Very non-digital, really hard to scale that. Now to jump to the enterprise, in the enterprise, right, you actually have software that runs all parts of your business. And that's really what Epicor's done, is we've done that, but applied it to manufacturers, distributors in the supply chain. So really what the ERP does, it's, think of it as the core of your business. It's what's the shape, what's the data ontology of your business, right? How do you run it every day? And then maintaining that process on the system. So it's primed, if you think about it, to be disrupted, right? Because like if you think every single piece of data that touches a business goes through the ERP.
That's a good breakdown. Yeah. And the ERP, because we love abbreviations and acronyms here, Enterprise Resource Planning System, right? And then it's my understanding that, when these first came out, you said in the 70s, they were on premise, and now they've largely switched to cloud-based systems. And it seems like the benefits are pretty clear. You can be accessed anywhere. You got automatic updates. You save money on infrastructure costs, among other things. I won't name names out there, but of course, there's lots of competitors in the cloud ERP system space. What makes Epicor Kinetic stand out from the competition?
Yeah, and I think it goes back to. By the way, this is a great question because I love getting it. I think it really goes back to that first point that I was making, which is we're very we're a large company. We have about 5,000 people, but our behavior is very startup like, and we very much kept that culture alive, right? Even if we are a 50-year-old company. And so we're very much focused on our customers. So our engineers, even me, like I meet with customers. If there's a bug or something in a release, it's me, other vice presidents that might be my peers of mine are on the phone with customers, right, trying to figure it out and solving it. To us, like our product is our most important thing. So in order for us to keep our competitive edge, that's it, is focusing on our verticals, remaining focused on our verticals, empowering workers, right? So reducing time, making people's lives easier, and then bringing, automation wherever possible. Because really what we want humans to focus on the strategic and leave the repetitive to the machines so that we can be much more effective as organizations. So that's kind of our mission. That's kind of our core and why we're so different. We start with problems and we work backwards from them.
Gotcha. Okay, I like that kind of startup mentality there, because that definitely paints a picture of kind of the mindset you have on capitalizing on some of these crazy AI innovations coming down the pipeline. I gave a really brief, high level overview of Prism in the introduction, but I want to hear your description, because you are kind of the mastermind behind it. Can you talk about first of all, what is Prism AI?
Sure. So in order to do that, I think I always, it might be long-winded, but I think it's an important point to understand. But before we get to what Prism is, so obviously, right, with large language models, doesn't surprise anyone, we're in the middle of that revolution, right? Not just that, but now we're adding reasoning on top of these models. I think, right, it was announced, was it yesterday, like 500 billion in funding for, right, the Stargate project. So obviously it's not going to slow down, right? So like there's going to be more and more capital being thrown at it, because really we are looking to unlock AGI, right? General intelligence. And actually think where before maybe, right, it was like, yeah, okay, that's 20 years away, right? Actually now we're feasibly years away, right? A few years away. So that's a big change, right? And so we need to be at the forefront. What we think now, why we believe Epicor in this role. So if you go back to what ERP is, what is ERP? It's the thing that really controls your business, right? So ERP has that visibility of anything. Now, on top of that, you put it in a cloud, right? Now you can, right? Now it can see across regions, right? Depending on, right, your multinational, if you're a multinational company, and actually bring insights and kind of centralize them. That's what ERP does today, right? Now we've added a lot of different toys, right, to ERP, things like BI, you can access your data through different APIs. You can even customize your UIs on top of it. Like we have a ton of different things that you can do. But I think what fundamentally changes now with large language models and if in this concept of AGI is that now you have these systems worldwide that are basically systems of record, right? And in some cases, you got 50 years worth of data in there. Now you can take a model and without having to train it, but just saying, hey, check out this data, learn what it is, because it can do that, right? It can transverse and it can read English and understand what you've set up. And then all of a sudden you have an expert in your system that you can have a conversation with. And so that's what we're doing, is we're taking large language models of today and applying them, and we're agnostic, meaning, right, whether it's Anthropic or OpenAI's new model or XAI, whatever it is, We can pick it up, apply it to solve a very specific problem. Now we decide, do we need reasoning? Do we need, right? Are we using RAG? Like whatever different strategies we use to pull that data, so that when you ask a question, instead of you having to like navigate a bunch of different screens and stuff, now for the first time ever, you can actually have a conversation with the system. And if you take that even further, then you can start, that thing not only can talk to you, but it can take action. So you can think of it, it can very quickly start mimicking almost an autonomous ERP system, where truly allows you to manage by exception, while your org can really focus on the high value strategic things and not the mundane, right? Like, oh, is this data right? Like, do we need to fix this? We need, right? Like all these things that really a machine, for the first time ever, is able to do. It'll free up all this innovation and creativity for all these companies.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, my mind just goes to like the parameter section of, say, ChatGPT, where you kind of like focus it in on, what you want it to focus on, or you can kind of create its own sort of rules to follow when it digests the information and acts on commands, right?
Right. Like right now, like I'll give you an example to that point, is like, because ChatGPT, like we can talk to it now, right? Like we'll open it up, whatever, 4.0, like even if we pay, right, $200, maybe we get 01 Pro, right? And this thing's a PhD. But it doesn't really have context. Like if I ask it, like, how many purchase orders came in last week on my ERP system? It doesn't know, right? It has no connection. It has no clue. But what we're doing actually is creating that orchestrator so that the large language model does know, right? And it can tell you, and it's an actual expert in your system.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So, and I guess in the most basic sense, it lets, you're creating a system that lets employees essentially type in questions or commands and have it act accordingly to access certain data, insights, offer recommendations. Is that kind of how you describe it?
That's basically it. So yeah, so like reimagining the way that human and machine interact, right? The first step is through a chat interface, which is Prism's, one of Prism's interfaces. But that's right. Very quickly, we're going to add things like Teams, right? Integrations, being able to talk to it through Teams, talk to it through text, maybe talk to it through email, and actually start interacting with this thing that understands your system.
Okay. So you talked about some of, a lot of how Prism works. At least you kind of laid the groundwork for it. But I'm curious, maybe you can touch on some of the UI aspects. What is this system? What does this tool look like from a UI standpoint?
Yeah. So right now, we're actually kind of, again, is another area where we're reimagining that. So obviously it lives inside of the ERP system. So it's always callable. It's there, right? You can always click it and call on it and talk to it. Again, that's the first version. What we think likely will change is actually the concept of UIs in general will probably get reimagined, right? And that's one of the things we're talking about, because if you can imagine, if this system does exist, why do you need a preset set of UIs, right? Like, why not just say, hey, Prism, I'm looking for this, I'm comparing, right? Like my suppliers in Asia with my suppliers in America. I want to know, whatever, you're asking something. You don't really need a pre-canned UI to do that, right? Because the AI could just build it right then and there. So this concept of what we're heading to, in our opinion, we believe that is this concept of a fluidity in the UI, meaning it becomes what you need it when you need it, versus it being something that you have to learn, right? It adapts to you. I think that's the difference of what's going to happen in software, especially in enterprise software, where customizations are always right, because you've got to, but I need this thing, I have this new process, so let me build it. Yeah, there's low code tools, there's different ways of doing it, but it all takes time, right? And it's expensive today. This reimagines it. It basically allows anybody, you don't have to know how to code, you don't have to do anything. As long as you speak English and you understand your operation, you can have a conversation with this thing, and it'll bring up whatever insights, actions you may need at that moment. That's the vision, right? The version today, yes, it's a chatbot. You can ask it anything like, Who did I ship this thing out to last week on Tuesday, right? Or how many items do I have on hand? You can check your inventory, things like that, like very real time kind of responses. We're not writing yet. The next step would be we want to write, right? Which means take action within the system. We obviously don't want to do that first, right? Because with AI, we're going slow. We'll get to writing, but first we read out of the system.
Yeah, well, I'll say just the barriers to entry that these AI tools kind of lower for so many different fields, like low code programming, is incredible. It's amazing. I mean, it takes like a daunting subject and makes it a lot more approachable. So I love that. But I'm also, I want to ask you about specifically AI agents, because we see this term sort of thrown around as like the next iteration of generative AI. And for those listening, AI agents are essentially like autonomous employees or workers that do work on your behalf. You'll be able to like program them to actually take over your computer and click around on the screen. As one example, we've seen sort of teased, I guess, by some of the big AI players out there. I'm curious, like, do you have this sort of functionality available now in some way, shape, or form, or is this something you're working on, or is it more kind of centered around the generative AI aspect?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. So at its core, what we're building is an agentic network for make, move, sell, right? So going back to that point that I said, where we start with problems and work backwards, that's how we kind of are letting the strategy. So we're letting the market and our customers define what are the agents that are really useful, right? That are going to give us the most ROI, and based on real world examples, right? And so like driving up, and having an ROI in 3 months. I'm not interested in building something that will show the ROI in a few years, right? So like what we want to do is we want to do very simple, time consuming tasks that an agent can come in and just do for you. Now I talked a little bit about writing. So right, like a lot of ERPs are very cumbersome, right? Their power is more in the data and the record keeping, not so much in their UX in general. So whenever you have to take certain steps inside of it, so let's say you may have to update, I don't know, 50 different dates for different items. It can take a while to do that because you're going to have to go in there. You might be able to export to Excel, change everything to Excel, import it back in, but you can imagine even that will take you 6, 7, 10 minutes maybe, right? Or if you're interrupted, you're in the middle of doing things, that takes time. And it sounds like a pretty low value thing, but it's high value because if those dates aren't right in the system, then all kinds of crap happens right later on in the process. And so yeah, this person has to bite the bullet and sit down for 30 minutes and enter this data. But what if right? We had this AI, it knows your system. You just tell it, hey, Prism, I have this list of dates. I need these things updated. And it can say, sure, are these, where do you need me to update it? This? Okay, yeah, I'll take the action. Is this okay? Does this look okay? Right? And you can review it. Now that can take something that used to take maybe 30 minutes. Now you reduced it down to 2 minutes, which is pretty good ROI. But now you multiply that through the organization and you multiply that through months, right? That is now those start adding up, right? Those are hours and hours and hours. That person, instead of entering dates, is now thinking about other things, right? And is available to do other things. That's just one example, but in an operation of a manufacturer, there's dozens of these.
Yeah. Is it the efficiency gains are huge. I mean, I could keep kind of talking more about that subject, but I'm curious. This tool is available for Kinetic, right? As of right now, what are some of the other plans? Do you have it? I imagine it's going to be integrated with other services that Epicor offers.
Yeah. So our plan is, as we build this agentic network, is to actually integrate it into all of our products. So it's starting with Kinetic, but our plans are absolutely for Prism to be this cognitive layer to all of our software, so that you or an agent, right? Even if it's an external agent, can interact with these systems through this layer, and it can access whatever it needs inside of it through this cognitive layer, basically.
Okay, that's exciting. So I'm curious too, are you seeing a lot of your clients ask for these AI features in particular, or is it more like they don't know what they're missing until they get to sit down and actually demo it and realize like, hey, I can't imagine working without it. Do you see people asking for it, or do you see um, you having to show them essentially?
Yeah. So what's interesting is, and this is, one of my philosophies in product is usually customers in the market don't necessarily know what they need, but they know the problem that they have, right? And so that's why we're very adamant about focusing on the problems. But yes, you're right. When I show what this thing can do at, for example, automating supplier communications, I mean, people are floored in the room, right? It's wow. People start seeing and they're like, wow, that's going to save me dozens of hours a week, right? Which is insane, right? And so I think it's when they see the problem that's bothering them, that's being resolved in front of their eyes. That's when they see it. Versus, right, like how can I use AI? Because that can be very also intimidating, right? Like AI, like it's like, oh, this, right? It's like this complicated thing. But when you actually like simplify it and the UX makes sense and it's human and it solves a real problem, everybody gets it. And so that's what we try to do.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because it's like when I talk to my parents or some family members about some of these AI tools, they view it through this particular kind of dystopian, and then once you do start using it, you just you just start going to all these different places of where can I apply this? Like, and it doesn't have to be just like summarizing a document or helping you outline, you know, yeah, like a Word PowerPoint or something. It could be something like generate ideas for dinner, generate like a workout routine I can do at home if I have a back injury and I can't do XYZ.
And oh, all these use cases you're talking about are just with you as a user interacting with the large language model. For the most part, companies have not integrated these large language models inside of their apps. But it's going to change even the way that you call an Uber, right? Or the way that you, heck, I don't even know. There's probably things we don't even know about that will be created, like Uber. Uber before the mobile phone was impossible, right? It was an impossible concept, but it came out. Who knows the things that as large language models are brought in and actually we see them in our daily lives, that's really when the aha moment will happen. I think that's when the world will really realize, like, oh wow, okay, now I get what this is.
I've even heard of mentions like kind of going back to the UI aspect you touched on is like even the traditional kind of smartphone UI where we have apps that could almost be a thing of the past in a way because you'll have all these AI tools that sort of integrate all in one AI assistant that you just be like, hey, ChatGPT or Gemini, just order me an Uber, and it'll just
Or Optimus. Now apparently Tesla's planning to pump out 6,000, I think, Optimus robots, something like that, a day in the next year. So, or by end of next year, something like that is the stat. Yeah, so soon we're gonna have a bunch of these robots walking around and doing things for us. So
and those we all know those timelines can be a little bit off, but it is happening. Well, I want to ask you: do you have a particular like success story that comes to mind when you think of a company that's maybe I don't know, sort of revolutionized their workflow with these AI?
yeah, at when we started, and obviously I can't speak too openly about who, right? But I will say it was a very advanced vehicle production company that competes with these vehicles at the top of the game. Um, and so that's really where we started Prism, and in helping them with their efficiency. So I'll give you an example. One of the, so we were touring this facility. So this was last year, but this is how quickly we built it, right? Because we built Prism in probably under 9 months, roughly. Um, we so we went in and we were touring the operation, and one of these, they have a lot of different industrial engineers depending on the area of the factory. Um, and they had, they go through thousands. They don't sell anything, right? Because they compete in races, but they go through thousands and thousands of items weekly, right? If there's a crash or there's a need for something, they need to very quickly turn around. They have thousands of suppliers, very fast moving operation. So one of the things is, we were talking, and I asked him, hey, what do you think of Kinetic? What do you, well, it's good. Like, I love that it's got all this stuff in there and all our information. But the problem is I can't use it. I don't have time to use it. So, I either have to open a ticket if I have a very specific question, or get one of my guys to run a report or whatever, right? So like, he doesn't really have that time. So it's like, oh, that's interesting. Well, what's an example? And he said, well, for example, today, there's this item, and he showed me, it was like a very specific gear that they had sent a week earlier on a Tuesday somewhere to one of the races, and they didn't know where. And so the guy was like, how do I figure this out? So I got to go in there, figure out in the ERP. I don't know how, because I got to click a bunch of different buttons. Let me open a ticket and let them, the team will do it for me. And he kept going, because he has like 200 other things to do. This isn't like his only thing. So he runs off. I see him the next day, and I'm like, oh, Andrea was his name. Did you get an answer to that thing we talked about yesterday? Yeah, I ended up getting an answer, but I didn't get it till this morning, and I had to move on because yesterday, this, and he moved on, right? He just assumed that he had sent something and moved on with the thing. And so that's when it dawned on me and on all of us on our team. And we were like, wait, if you could just ask the system, would that be cool? Like, would that be valuable? And everyone was like, oh yeah, like, and everyone just goes off, right? Like, all the industrial engineers are like, yeah, if I could just like text the thing, like with my question, yeah, that's fantastic. I can just move on. So that was kind of the inception of that moment of why. And that's when it dawned on all of us, like, oh, wow, there is a lot of value in a system like this.
Huh. But yeah, the light bulb effect just wow, yeah. And then just like the snowball effect of like when everyone kind of has these tools and like just the ability to get an answer right away. I mean, you can get the part faster, and it just creates this like this just smooth snowball. Yeah, I mean that's the best way to visualize it.
It's an interesting way, yeah, because like one of the we were talking, me and a buddy of mine works at another tech company, but basically like we were thinking about how revolutionary this will be like for companies, because all of a sudden, like you take these tasks that are super mundane and time consuming, and you don't really realize how truly costly they are, right? But I think like over time, especially manufacturers, they're going to find themselves, like you said, with a snowball where everybody's saving time, and now all of a sudden you have all this extra time, and where do you put that time? You innovate, you improve your processes, you come up with a new idea to do X or Y or Z. So really what it'll do is these 10x gains in efficiencies, I think, will lead to 100x gains in creativity and innovation. So that's what makes me super excited about the next 10, 15 years. Is it's more than just like Epicor and ERP. It really is, I think society will be so much more efficient.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to kind of end it on too, that on that high note, because I think there's a lot of excitement around this space, and just in the next like 6 to 12 months, I mean, there's so much going on. It's fascinating, and I like to take the positive, optimistic approach too. So
yeah, we're very bullish here. I'm very bullish. So I have really high hopes with what we can do with this technology. And like I said, I think the whole, replacing people and things like that, we don't view it that way. I think it's about empowering, right? Like, I think it is different than anything before. It's not like, when the steam engine, this is more, I think, fundamental than that. But I think it's going to open up so many different things, drive down the cost of innovation, right? Increase competitiveness, because now, right, you, Beau, can code just as good as, some Google engineer, right? Or whatever. You're going to be able to do that, right? And you're going to be able to create things that maybe were impossible. Even, my mom, whoever, right? My kids will be able to create things. So everyone will be like a computer programmer without having to learn computer programming. It's going to be, I think it's going to be incredible.
yeah, no, I totally agree. It really democratizes the access to so many things. I mean, I can create in this little space here. I can create, movie scenes and generate all sorts of things that would typically need a full professional, Hollywood studio space for or something. So,
and I'm sure we're going to see creators that are going to, launch, their series, and people tune in and be like, wow, this is awesome. And They did it with, $50 and a and a subscription to some AI, right? And yeah, I think the future is bright, honestly.
Awesome. Well, hey, on that note, I want to ask you if before we go, how can listeners get in touch with you, learn more about Epicor Prism, and just reach out to your team?
Yeah, so obviously our website, so the Epicor website is a good place to go. We actually have a whole AI section actually covering Prism. I'll also be on LinkedIn. You can find me there, where I do a lot of different announcements of different things that we're incubating. So definitely stay tuned in.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited. Thank you again for taking the time. I know you're a busy guy. You got some travel plans and everything going on. So thank you for sitting down and talking to us about Epicor Prism.
Right.
So yeah, that's Arturo Buzzalino, Chief Innovation Officer at Epicor. Thank you.
Thanks, Beau.
Thank you all for listening to the SourceForge podcast. I'm your host, Beau Hamilton. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all of our upcoming B2B software related podcasts. I will talk to you in the next one.